The story begins with this bright and sunny day. Things were ordinary and usual like any other day. In this world, playing video games has become the norm. People were even going outside and meeting their friends just to trade or sell some items. And along with the other people that was going through their normal day was this day. Everything was normal until something happened. A bright blue light suddenly appeared in front of the huge crowd. This guy right here is our main protagonist. And he got this confused face as he looked at this bright light. An immense amount of pressure also came in along with the light. Everyone stopped what they were doing as they wondered if this was a kind of terrorist attack or an earthquake. Little did they know, this was the last peaceful day they were about to experience. The bright light enveloped the whole city. Our MC was still trying to block the blinding light that appeared in front of him. This continued until he noticed something. The road that he was about to cross was now gone. It has now become a cliff. Zooming out, the city looked like it was isolated from the other place. It was even placed on a pedestal. Our MC just stood there while staring at the edge of their city. And meanwhile, the other people that were trapped with him were still in shock. Some of them tried checking the signal of their phones, only to find out that they have no cell service. As for our MC, he was now thinking if this was a kind of dimensional transportation or if they were teleported to another world. He even compared this to the novels and webtoons he had read. All of their attention was then shifted in front of them as a notification from what seemed to be a kind of system appeared. It was an announcement saying that a game has begun. It was asking everyone to throw their dice. Our MC then wondered what dice this system was talking about. But this announcement confirmed his theory that they were now inside a game. This lady then alerted everyone to look at the sky. She was pointing something. A huge box was now falling towards their direction. It was heading with an incredible amount of speed. This guy then thought that this was the dice that the game was talking about. And if the setting was zoomed out even more, this thing was really indeed a dice. And it has the usual numbers in it. After a few seconds, the dice settled down and it showed a number 3. The system then notified everyone that the pawn number 8 will now move 3 spaces. The whole city that was isolated from the rest of the world then started trembling. This was looking like a board game now. It was also revealed that for each space, there were icons that were printed on them. Some looked like shields, flags and even a sword. The whole pedestal then moved and followed the 3 spaces that the system announced a while ago. The people that were trapped in this city then started to panic. They don't even have the slightest idea on what's going to happen next. Meanwhile, our MC has this calm expression. He started analyzing the situation and thought that they were indeed summoned to a game. The only problem was that they were not the players. In this story, they were the pawns that were being moved along the game. Our MC also assumed that the one who threw the dice was the real player here. He also compared their situation towards the in-game characters that the players could choose. But the thing that bothered our MC was that if this game needed a pawn, why would it bother summoning the whole city? He then wondered if this has something to do with the requirements of this game. His thoughts were cut off when another notification was shown. The system informed them that they just now arrived at a defense space. The difficulty and defense time will also be set using the dice. The player rolled the dice and it showed number 1. This means that the difficulty of the game will be set to level 1. Another dice was rolled and now it showed number 3. The system then told everyone that for this defense game, the pawn will have 3 days to defend. After that, the whole city was then summoned into a new map. Another block was merged towards the city. This one looked like a forest. The people that were still inside this one wondered where the other block came from. From its distance, a huge amount of silhouettes could be seen. The system then notified everyone that the defense mission will begin soon. As for the requirement, it warned everyone that if all 4 bases were destroyed, the game would be over. Different bases were then established among the corners of the city. And if all of these places were gone, the pawn would also be destroyed. This meant that all the people would die. As soon as they found out about this, most of the crowd started to panic. They even pleaded for someone to take them back to their normal lives. Meanwhile, our MC knew that this option was really not available because if it was, the system should have given them a choice from the very start. In his mind, he thought that the best thing they could do right now was to listen to what the system was telling them. Another announcement then appeared and it informed everyone that it will now start providing the citizens with basic equipment. Something also came out from the notification. It commanded everyone to throw their dice. Each equipment will also have classes, which will be determined along with the number that the people would get. This dice also has up to 100 faces. Before our MC could roll his, the The person beside him alerted everyone that something was approaching their direction. These were the said silhouettes a while ago, and by the looks of it, these ones didn't look like rescue teams. After a few seconds, it became evident that the ones that were running in their direction were monsters. The crowd then started running away. This also includes our MC. As the monsters went through the invisible wall that separates these two blocks, a powerful lightning appeared. Those who were too slow to run and react were now being attacked by the monsters. Since our MC was just too near the edge of their block, one monster managed to catch up to him. With a mighty club swing, a burst of crimson sprayed, the monster has successfully landed an attack towards our MC. This guy was now sent flying, and all the while, he thought that he just found out why humans were needed in this game. Their role was to act as the force that will protect the pawn. Our MC landed towards these piles of boxes. It was a powerful impact. The mechanics of the whole game was now starting to get clear. Humans would need to protect the pawn city in order to keep moving towards the goal. This is a dice game that was being played by gods or demons. Each one has a pawn city that they control, and all of the things that would happen on the board relies on the number that the dice would show. Back to our MC, he was still lying on the boxes. The amount of damage that he got was just too significant. The monster that dealt this was also standing in front of him. It got this fierce expression on its face. This one looked like a powerful warder among their tribe. And while it was looking at our MC, a lady with flame wings appeared. This one was even wielding a spear. The lady then made her spear pierce right through the ground. A force that looked like lavas came out from it. After that, a flame whirlwind appeared and it alerted the monsters that were present in the area. The force intensified even more after a few more seconds. It was now starting to suck the monsters towards it. The monsters didn't have any way to counter or even avoid this powerful skill. The ones that were caught became ashes. The people that were near the area received some time to breathe. This meant that they were now safe. The flame whirlwind went out and it revealed the same lady that wielded the spear. People were now wondering what was the identity of this new hero. This waifu right here that had this white hair and red fierce eyes was Hau and Jiu. She's just level 1 and she's also an ordinary citizen. The thing that made her this powerful was the item that she was wielding. It was called the Empirical Flame Dragon Prominence's Canine. It has a legendary class. This thing allows the user to borrow the power of the Empirical Flame Dragon. Haiju then commanded everyone that was injured to run towards the Namsan Tower. She revealed that the military and police were forming a defense line there. She also asked everyone to roll their dice as soon as possible. These ones then started looking at the dice that they got from the system. Haiju confirmed this and they followed her instructions. She also told them that the dice will turn into an equipment that will correspond to the number that they will roll. She commanded those who will receive ordinary equipment to just fall back. As for those who will receive magical class and above, she wanted them to help her fend off the monsters. The crowd found out that Haiju was really telling the truth. Some of them got scythes, sickles, shields, and even maces. A new face of monsters was rushing towards the city and Haiju stood right in the front lines to defeat these guys. One person among the crowd then told everyone to do what Haiju said. Those who have magical class and above equipment rushed through the monsters. This very same day marked the time when all of the humans lost their ordinary lives. But this was also the start of them living extraordinary lives. The first day of the new year, the countless people died. As for the ones that survived, they will be considered as the heroes that would serve as the pillar of the city pawn. Our MC was still alive amidst the chaos that just subsided. It was also revealed that his name was Choi Yul. He's also a level 1 ordinary citizen. This guy managed to hold onto his dice even after being defeated by the monster. And after a few seconds, he lost consciousness and the dice fell. It then started rolling on top of the system notification. And with the overwhelming odds, RMC managed to roll the highest number, which was the number 100. This right here was the start of his journey of becoming the strongest human in this pawn. The dice shines more brightly after a few seconds. It started to melt and it's now forming into a new piece of equipment. The one that RMC got was a mythical class magic textbook. It's called the Demon King of Sovereignty Krasina's book. This allows the user to use the library of the Demon King Krasina. Using this item would allow the user to find all kinds of information, including item locations, hidden events, and even monster information. The book started to emanate this crimson bright glow as it was summoned in front of Yul. And while RMC was unconscious, the system's warning about this item appeared. It said that Krasina is an incarnation of monopolistic desire. This meant that all of the rewards that the people would get from the information of this book will be taken from them. And they will all be given to the current owner of Krasina's book, which in this case was RMC Choi Yul. After that, the defense game continued. The 3 hours had already passed. As for the casualties, there were now 3,102. And another 7,023 people were injured. And despite all of the efforts of the humans inside this city, one base still got destroyed. Haiju did most of the work. This was only natural because she has a powerful weapon alongside her. She wondered if the defense game was now over. The people who managed to survive celebrated. They also hailed her as a goddess that saved them. And while they were happy with this situation, an army truck came in and it got their attention. One person came out from the vehicle and introduced themselves as the Korean army. The soldiers then started moving out and their leader commanded his subordinates to get all the injured and the civilians in the truck. Their main goal was to evacuate them all to Namsan Tower. The leader of this group then went to Haiju and saluted in front of her. This one claimed that Haiju worked really hard again. This soldier right here is Kwon Yom. He thanked Haiju for giving the army and the police enough time to organize and dispatch the needed forces to different places. The item that he got was called Helden's Helmet. This item is a hero rank helmet and its effect is it prevents the user from falling into a state of confusion, fear, or bewilderment. Haiju then asked Ying if the battle was already over. This one then responded that they were still not sure about the outcome as phone calls and the internet don't work at all. They have no other way of communicating towards the other troops. As for their temporary solution, the army established shortwave radios. This way, they could expect reports from each place. After explaining everything to Haiju, the soldier told her that they should go to Namsan Tower to seek shelter for now. But someone behind them shouted. The unknown voice told them not to go there. The one that said this was none other than RMC. He was now conscious and back on his feet. He was also holding the book that he got from the dice. He revealed that the game was not over yet. Even in his dire situation, Yul managed to inform them that the boss monster of this stage will be coming soon. He told them that the information was written in the book that he was holding now. He also claimed that it was all written in this book. Mission information, monster data, and the current progress of everything. RMC then showed them the book to back up his claims. But in Ying and Haiju's perspective, all they could see was a blank paper. This confused these two and thought that maybe the contents of this book could only be seen by this guy. Ying added that maybe this item was more of a data book. In the back of his mind, he knew that if all of this information were true, this item was very overpowered. To confirm what this guy in front of them was saying, Ying asked for more information. RMC happily complied and opened more pages of the book. Yul started reading the information about Ying's item. He revealed that this helmet is one item of a 6-item set. Additionally, Yul also knew about some of his personal information like the number of days the soldier left until he gets discharged. After that, Yul turned his attention towards Haiju. He also knew about her weapon and to really convince them, RMC revealed that this lady's favorite song to sing at karaoke is Chilled Up Mountain. Hearing this embarrassing and unexpected information made Haiju blush. She then asked Yul to stop from reading the book. These two were now convinced that the things that were written on this item were all reliable and true. This also confirmed Ying's thoughts about it being a data book. He then remembered the first thing that Yul warned them about and it was the boss monster that will come out soon. After confirming this information, Ying got his radio and was already about to inform the headquarters about this. And while this was all happening, someone was in deep thought. This one wondered if he could now be considered as a bug character inside the game. He claimed that the world's problems were all too easy for him. This one also thought that this may also be the reason why the world made him like this. It was as if the operator of this game found a bug and isolated it from the rest of the program. This one then thought of something he would do if he could get the chance to go out into the world. This scene was then cut off suddenly. The next thing we knew was that Yul's attention was being called out by someone. And it took him a while to notice this. The one that was shouting his name was Yom. This soldier informed our MC that he received permission from the headquarters to carry out their plan. The truth is, this move was a really huge gamble for the army because it might cost a lot of lives. But since they really didn't have another plan nor any time to spare, they decided to trust Yul's data. The radio that Yom was holding was then given to our MC. The army was now trusting him to give them as much information and countermeasures as possible. Our MC then gladly accepted the responsibility. He started talking towards the radio to test it. He then introduced himself and told everyone that he will now be talking about the defense mission. As for this stage of the game, Yul revealed that their primary mission is to protect the base from the waves of monsters. The waves will come every 6 hours, and at the end of each wave, there will be a boss monster. This time, the boss monster that appeared was called Twin-Headed Ogre. Its difficulty was at level 1. This creature could use a close combat and magic at the same time. Yul emphasized that they would win if they could protect the base 4 times a day. And that was 12 times in 3 days. He also informed everyone about the information that he got right now. Yul claimed that they could use everything and strategize together. As for the other people who couldn't fight, they would be focusing towards the rescue operation. This way, they could ensure everyone's safety and survival. Our MC also told everyone that after this fight, he would also use the book to look for some ways how they could go back to their world. This statement got the attention of Heiju. White-haired waifu got speechless upon hearing our MC. She was kind of amazed because Yul was not just thinking about this mission, but even what will happen afterwards too. After giving the initial information, our MC took a deep breath to prepare himself for what he was about to do. This person right here was now determined to lead everyone so they could win this game. This was also the start of him proving himself. The only problem with him doing this was the effect of Krasina's book. Our MC thought that he should have double-checked everything first. The warning about this item was given to him by the system while he was unconscious. And while he was busy giving everyone commands and directions on what they should do, the demon king that was inside was also busy writing the names of the people who were receiving the information. This includes Heiju and Yom. The book was about to monopolize all of the rewards of those with whom the information was shared. And the scope of the term being shared includes everything. The book was now collecting more and more names. The requirement doesn't just include the people who heard the information directly from Yul. It also includes all the people who hear from others, hear rumors, and such. The names kept piling up. And that was because the information on how to defeat monsters was being passed on by one person to another. These 3 also did their best fending off the smaller monsters. Their role towards this defense game was just too great. And after a few more seconds, the boss monster of this wave has finally appeared. The ogre was even wielding this powerful sword. Yul then commanded Yom to start firing. This was to distract the boss monster. The attack was becoming more effective because our NC kept on providing the weakness of this one. And after a few, the boss monster stopped moving. This was a cue that Yul was waiting for. He then told Heiju some things. In a blink of an eye, this lady vanished from her position. The next thing we knew was that she was already rushing towards the ogre with this powerful flame attack. This was more than enough to cut the ogre in half. Heiju was also able to exude more power than it even turned her hair red. Heiju was taken aback when she realized what just happened. She started looking at the transformation she just got. Aside from her hair turning into the color of the flames, she also got more powerful. Yul then gave her a thumbs up as she just defeated the boss monster. Yom also did his job to inform everyone that the first wave was over. Heiju smiled and gave the thumbs up back to our NC. Little did they know, something was happening. Krasina was busy doing his role. The demon king of sovereignty was about to collect everything. The greedy being that was in deep slumber was about to be woken up. The total population that this pawn city has was around 193,256, and the recorded sacrifices of sovereignty that used the information that the book provided were around 176,542. This marked the beginning of Yul carrying a heavy burden, as a staggering 91% of the population was classified as sacrifices in just one day, and this would continue until the last day of the game. The intense battle that the first wave did towards the 8th pawn resonated throughout the area. A defense mission is kind of like a defense game. Monsters would keep on attacking the area until the time runs out, and as they moved toward the bases, the players would produce forces to stop these ones. More and more waves kept on coming into the city. But unlike the first one, the monsters got confused because they were not able to see a human, and this was because Yul kept on leading everyone. The humans that were able to get long-range weapons were commanded to fire onto the waves. This has been really effective because it covers a wide area, and while their weapons were in cooldown, another set of attackers would take their place. This kind of tactic proved to be really useful against monsters that were not intelligent. The remaining monsters that managed to survive were then faced by the soldiers. Most of them were lured up to the direction that Yul wanted them to be, and when they were split up, the close-range humans were there waiting. These monsters were then given their final fate, and this seemed to be a piece of cake for these ones who got higher grade weapons. The 8th Pawn City's backbone was really this guy right here. Each time the waves came, there were already elaborate plans that were placed, and these ones were created to lessen injuries and avoid casualties. Krasina's book updates in real time all the information about the current situation. Yul was becoming more amazed about this item that he got because whatever information he needs, it automatically shows up. All he needed to do was to flip the damn pages. More and more data was then provided, and for each second passing by, this information was being used by everyone. As for our MC, he still had no idea on what consequence this was about to give. The defense game was still ongoing. Monsters were still being defeated all over the place. Yul has maintained his calm decision-making and led the soldiers. After clearing one place, they were required to report this to Choi Yul. This guy had become speechless after completing their mission in this area. In the back of his mind, he was thinking about our MC. At first, the commanding headquarters still had the final say on what they should do about the information that was being given by our MC. But as the situation progressed, Yul became more like their official commander. Ying still kept quiet and didn't bother talking to anyone about this. All he knew was that Yul told them that there's only data in the book. What amazes him was if Yul also had the natural ability to lead everyone and command over the entire city. He also wondered if the book was also behind this amazing ability to lead. His train of thoughts were then cut off as our MC got his attention. Yul smiled and told him that it's almost over now. Ying then asked our MC if the last boss monster was already coming. Our MC confirmed this but still assured him to not worry. And this statement confused the soldier. Yul then revealed that the one that will end this fight in one go was Heiju, which was currently sleeping at the back of this truck. This powerful waifu then woke up after a few hours, and by the time she opened her eyes, a gigantic rock monster was already in front of her. Heiju screamed loudly as she saw this monster. This one right here was called Billy the Giant. Its difficulty was still at level 1. It was born weak and was abandoned by his kind. Even though it was large, it was still lacking in combat power. Yul and Ying greeted our sleeping beauty as soon as she regained herself. Ying claimed that her timing was just perfect because they were about to run out of flares that were used to lure and distract this monster. Even though the description for this boss monster tells Yul that it still lacks power, its attacks were still more than enough to crash anything. Heiju was taken aback as she realized the power that this boss monster has. Yul then told her that this was the main reason they lured this one away from the city. With just one single strike, it could destroy the bases in one go. The only thing that humans have advantage against this boss monster was that it was just too slow, and it has no resistance against any element. Yul revealed that they could win against it if they could just focus all of their attacks on this one. Heiju heard this statement and wondered why there were only the 3 of them here now against this boss monster. Our main character then informed her that all they required was Heiju's power, leaving waifu in a state of astonishment. And while she was still wondering what our MC meant, Billy the Giant was slowly approaching their direction. This one knew that she didn't have much time to panic, so she wielded her weapon and asked Yul for some instructions on how to defeat this one. Our MC then told her that after the items with heroic crank and above, there's this hidden feature, and if someone could fulfill the requirements, the item could transform or a hidden skill will be activated. This was the first time Heiju and Ying found out about this feature, and they got really interested. Yul also confidently revealed that the book also revealed the requirement for each item. After a while, Heiju was already positioned in the middle of the fields. She was ready to battle Billy the Giant. Before she proceeds, she asked someone one more time if he was really sure about this information. Her question was for Yul, and he told her to just trust him and the book. Heiju then raised the spear that she was holding while thinking that she still didn't feel good about this, but this one really had no other choice because she trusted Yul. In an instant, Heiju pierced herself right through using the spear, and while she just wounded herself, Billy the Giant appeared right in front of her and was about to deliver a devastating strike. But before this boss monster could finish its attack, a huge flaming dragon appeared in front of it. The system then notified the Heiju that the hidden skill of Prominence's canine was now activating. Yul and Ying could only stare at this amazing scene in front of them. The huge silhouette of this flame dragon then started gathering flames on its mouth. Turns out, the hidden skill would allow Heiju to summon the flame dragon once per mission, and right now, it was standing in front of this giant that looked like a little kid. The huge ball of flames was then casted towards Billy the Giant, and the force that it created destroyed everything that it touched. It also made this huge explosion as soon as it landed towards the boss monster. Ying then figured that Yul planned this thing all along. If the attack of the flame dragon was casted near the city, it would have destroyed everything. But there's still one more thing that was more dangerous than that skill, and that was Choi Yul's book. RMC then quickly approached Haeju to check her, but he ended up telling her that she was hot, literally and figuratively. Meanwhile, Ying was still thinking about Yul's book. He thought that the information that was written on it was just too much. If used wrong, it could lead to the downfall of this city. And while these two in front of him were helping each other, this soldier was just glad that this book came in possession to someone with a good heart. After defeating the final boss, Himani was then transported back to one area. The system also informed them that they just completed the defense mission. People started celebrating. It was also announced that rewards will be given to all surviving citizens. All of them got 300 PTS for clearing the mission, but it was deducted by 25% because they lost one base. As for the individual reward, each would receive something based on their contribution rate. A point shop was also opened in front of the people. They found out that they could buy all sorts of items here using the points they were about to receive. There were even healing potions and all sorts. The nurses and those who were inside the infirmary told everyone to prioritize getting the potion first. Yul smiled as he was glad that the injured ones could easily be treated now. But as for the other people around him, they were startled by what they saw. Our MC also noticed that something was weird. This was the same for Haeju and Yom. It has something to do with the points. Turns out, the system notified everyone that they have been rewarded with 0 points because of the effect of the skill called Sacrifice of Sovereignty. Most of the crowd started to panic. They claimed that they really need some points now to heal some people. Haeju was already panicking and she turned towards Yul to ask. But all our MC could say to her was that he also has no idea. But all the while, he had this grim expression on his face. The system notification that was shown in front of him was different from the rest. It was the skill Sacrifice of Sovereignty. It informed Yul that if he managed to sacrifice 90% of the citizens, the rewards he would get would increase by 100 times. After a few seconds, everyone got the same notification. It was like a leaderboard for the people who got the most points for the defense game. There were now 2 people listed. These ones managed to survive on their own and didn't get Yul's information. But as for the top one that got most of the points, the system announced that it was Choi Yul. Our MC just got a whopping 9,968,844,850 points. Everyone was shocked when they saw this announcement. They were all speechless at first, but all of their faces turned into a grim one as they realized something. The people started rushing towards Yul and claimed that he stole their points. Some of them were even begging for a few points just to buy healing potions. Haeju and Ying tried stopping everyone from reaching Yul. Our MC tried stating his side and told everyone that he had no idea about this thing and he was not aware about this feature. Ying then intervened and told him to calm down. He suggested that they should focus first on treating the injured. With a serious expression, this soldier knew that points could be traded or given out, so he told Yul to share them amongst the people who needed it the most. Our MC then immediately agreed. He didn't want others to think that he did steal the points on purpose. And while Yul was already trying to give back the points, a system notification appeared and it showed the passive skill of his item. This one prevents him from sharing or donating items/points. The crowd was already in chaos. They were demanding our MC to give their points back. But all the while, Yul was not able to do anything. He even tried buying some potions then giving them to the people, but the passive skill prevented him. Yul got annoyed and frustrated to the point that he even threw the book to the ground. If things were not making any sense, Haeju even helped on destroying it using her flaming spear. Yul thought that by doing this, the effect of the item would be gone. But that was not clearly the case. The book was slowly regaining its form. Our MC then started thrashing around the area. All he ever wanted was to survive this game, but now, he was about to get condemned for this situation. He was even hearing the cries of the people near him. Some of them were just begging for 10 points to heal their loved ones. All of the people were now blaming our MC for this unfortunate event. In their minds, they regret trusting Yul with this defense game. As for Young, he kept on receiving reports that the death tolls are rising. The army was also starting to struggle maintaining the enraged citizens. This one just stared at Yul blankly. Meanwhile, this one kept on looking for some ways to negate the effect. He hoped that the book would also provide this kind of information. Yul froze in place when he sensed the presence of something pointed at his head. It turned out to be a gun. This move was from Young. He claimed that this madness should be enough now and told our MC that what he was about to do now was for the best. And since he got no response from Yul, Young repeated his words. He revealed that Choi Yul was now under arrest. The crowd that was near them heard this and they were not satisfied. They even wanted to take care of things in their own hands. Haeju was the one who tried to stop them. Young then moved closer to our MC and whispered something. He told Yul to run away and find some ways to fix all of this. He claimed that this was the best move they got right now. Yul was stunned hearing this suggestion. He clenched his fists as he knew that Young was right. The crowd was starting to become more violent. And in a few more seconds they will be able to reach him. Our MC then summoned the system shop. He bought agility stats from the points he got. And in a split second, a bright red light appeared. Yul has finally fled the area. This move then enraged the people more. After that, the whole area was filled with notification sounds. All of the people received another announcement that the next turn of the player that was assigned to this city pawn was around 24 hours from now. Worries and panic got evident on their faces. They didn't expect it to be this soon. Young didn't waste any more time and led all of the crowd to a more safe area. And while all of the people were now busy evacuating, Haeju was just left there standing. She was still thinking about what just happened to Yul and to all the points that he got. After a few hours, the crowd calmed down. The army was now asking everyone to pick their roles. They could choose to fight or they could just evacuate. They were also asked to always check their status window and that they should never leave the evacuation center. Some of the officers also assisted the older citizens and taught them how to use the system window. These guys also commanded the people to run away as soon as they spotted Choi Yul. The army was now desperate to isolate all the people who could hear even the slightest information from Yul. And all the while, the most wanted person in this city pawn was just busy making this magic circle. RMC was now wielding this red chalk. Even though he was already hiding himself from the crowd, he could still hear all the announcements that were pertaining to him. As for the other guys who contributed a lot from the previous mission, they were busy planning their next move. Haeju was also doing her best to prepare herself for the upcoming battle. The people who were too old or too young to fight were placed in a safer area. And the ones who were about to fight against monsters sought blessings or for any support they could have. And just like that, the 24 hours that the system gave to them was over. It notified everyone that the new turn will now begin. The player that was assigned to them just rolled the dice. This move would determine the fate of this pawn city. After a few seconds, the system informed everyone that the 8th pawn will be moving 4 spaces. The pedestal then followed the number shown. It will now land towards this space with purple lights. This one was called the Demon King Seal Space. It informed everyone that demonic pillars will start appearing in certain places and all they needed to do was to destroy all of them. And if these seals were not destroyed within the given time, the Demon King will be summoned. As usual, the game would proceed on setting the mission time, number of pillars and the difficulty of the pillar guardians. The duration of the mission would be 5 days and there will be 3 pillars that will be summoned. As for the first pillar, the difficulty that was set on it was just level 1. A huge tower with chains appeared in a certain part of the city and on the top part of it, there appeared to be a statue with wings. This right here was called the Fateless Fallen Angel. This monster will be the pillar guardian that would prevent the people from destroying its base. The second pillar guardian's difficulty was also set to level 1. And time, this monster resided on the top of this crystal-like tower. The guardian that would be defending this one was called the Mad Brains. It's a being that cannot stop creating things. And as time passes, the better its creations are. And finally, the last pillar guardian's difficulty was also set. And unfortunately, it happened to be level 3. This notification startled Haeju and Yom. The last demonic seal was right in this tower. The level 3 guardian that would be guarding it was called the Goblin Swordmaster Jack. This one has reached the peak of martial arts and gone through body transformation. He's now trying to undo the seal of the Demon King to challenge him. Back to our MC, he also saw all of the notifications. And he was just here lying on the ground. This scene was kinda like the one in Soul Leveling. Yom had this kind of smile as the announcement concluded. Meanwhile, Ying received a report that the civilians have already started attacking the pillars. This meant that the battle had already begun. The guardian that made the first move was the Fateless Angel. The report said that they have tried stopping the people but they're just too uncontrollable. Ying knew that there's nothing they could do now but to back them up. He then asked about the situation of Haiju. One soldier that was standing near him informed Ying that she already left a while ago. This one thought that this situation really became a mess. The perfect cooperation and coordination they had fell in just one day. As for Haiju, this lady has already arrived in front of the red crystal demonic seal. This one was planning to confront the pillar guardian all by herself. Haiju had this focused expression on her face. The aura of this goblin swordmaster was different from the previous boss monster she had encountered. This one didn't even become violent in front of her presence. Haiju then rushed towards this guardian. She thought that she needed to defeat this one quickly so she could prevent anyone from dying against it. She summoned all of her strength and she was able to land a hit. But the problem was that her spear didn't go through the goblin. Her spear was stopped by the sword of this guardian. This one then twisted its sword to do one counterattack. The goblin swung and it was more than enough to send Haiju flying. It then started raising its sword once again. But this time, magic particles were starting to form around it. This one exuded this bright blue light and in a swift moment, a slash was about to land onto Haiju. Her eyes widened because she was not even able to react against it. The whole area was then enveloped with the blue aura from the slash of the goblin. This should have ended their encounter, but then, the goblin saw something that caught its attention. Someone also came in front of its demonic tower seal, and this person was none other than Choi Yul. He also held Haiju in his arms as he saved her from the impending death. Our MC then brought her down and asked if Haiju could say something to all the people. This was about the rewards that Yul got a while ago. Hearing this, Haiju's face brightened up. She thought that our MC found a way to return everything back. But that was not the case. Yul wanted them to know that he will be keeping everything for himself. This statement confused Haiju. Yul was about to approach the guardian pillar, but before doing that, he told Haiju to warn everyone not to get near him if they don't want their rewards to be stolen. And this was all because of this mythical item that he got. The Book of Greed. Our MC was now planning to face everything alone. This was because he found out that there's nothing he could do about the rewards. And he couldn't also escape the Demon King's book. This man was about to bear the heaviest responsibility on his back right now. Yul then opened the system shop and told the system that he will be buying stats. The level of his stat window was at level 30. And each of these points were allotted towards the agility one. And since he got all the points he would need to buy everything, he told the system to max out all of his stats. Haiju was then shocked to see multiple notifications that appeared on her status window. All of the people who saw these ones got annoyed and felt bitter. This was because the system informed them that Choi Yul was the first citizen to max out his stamina, intellect, wisdom, agility, and health. Even the luck stat was maxed out to 100. Our MC was starting to feel the sudden surge of power he just got. He then asked the system how many equipment dice he got, and it told him that he now has 423,512. Yul then commanded the system to roll everything and get rid of the ones that were under magical class. The only things that he would need were those above heroic class. When all of the dice were rolled, our MC got 142 legendary class equipment and 1023 heroic ones. A huge pile of system notifications then appeared in front of Yul. The items that he got were about to be summoned. In his mind, he would just use everything to his advantage since he can't get rid of this skill. Yul was now planning to monopolize all the rewards and power that this Demon King's book could offer. The Goblin Swordmaster knew that something interesting was about to happen, and it made it smile. Right in front of him was the most overpowered MC that we could see. Yul's silhouette was already filled with a powerful aura. This guy right here has made up his mind. He would be the protector of the city from this game and do everything to go back to his original life. Yul got this determined smile on his face. He thought that if this was the only way to atone the sins that he got, he would be more than willing to take it. Meanwhile, the Goblin Swordmaster Jack was just patiently waiting for our MC to be done with his shenanigans. This one had this habit that he would just attack those who he considers to be a strong enemy. But before they could even start their battle, Yul told him that he was sorry because he doesn't really have much time to play with Jack now. After that, he equipped a heroic rank shoe that's called Magic Air Shoes. This item makes the user jump and float mid-air. Man would be consumed continuously. Our MC then jumped and vanished instantly. He also told Jack that he will be back soon, so it should wait for him here. Haiju was still there and witnessed the whole thing. She got confused because Yul suddenly left casually. This guardian pillar then sat down once again and seemed to be not bothered by what just happened. Haiju got more confused as she saw that the goblin swordmaster would really just sit there and wait. She wondered what's the real deal with this pillar guardian's attitude. Back to Yul, this guy was just hopping around the city, and while approaching another monster using his Jordan shoes, he thought that Jack wouldn't attack anyone unless it was attacked, so he got all things under control. Right now, our MC's target was this fateless angel right here who happened to notice his presence. But before this pillar guardian could react, Yul has already landed a kick onto this one. The impact of this attack could be seen by the shock waves it produced. Yul smiled because this was his plan all along. He would just go and fight the other more aggressive guardians first. As for the crowd that lost their rewards, they still have the same resentment towards Yul. They were all bitter because their points were used by RMC on maxing all of his stats, but their whining were then silenced as they witnessed this intense battle in front of them. Yul has continued to attack the Fateless Angel. This guardian also has a unique trait that will be unlocked after fulfilling a certain condition. The book has also provided our MC the strengths and weaknesses of this one. While fighting the guardian, Yul thought that he should prevent the unique trait from activating, as it will really be a huge mess to deal with. And since this one was practically fighting a maxed stat character, it was already being overwhelmed. The unique trait that this Fateless Angel has was that if this one killed 100 humans, it would transform, and its next form would be more than enough to destroy the whole city. From being a Fateless Angel, it would be the slaughterer of all mankind. Before this thing could become stronger, Yul was determined to end this one now. RMC swung his sword and its slashes were able to sever the wings of the monster. This guy wanted to get rid of the ones that have traits that would cause more trouble in the future. The Fateless Angel was now falling to the ground. Its ability to fly was removed. In Yul's mind, the most important thing was not to clear the mission. It lies on how they would complete it. Right now, he was rushing towards the Fateless Angel again. This one was falling at an incredible speed. And on the road that was directly below the monster, an army truck was on its way to rescue some civilians. Ian was inside this said truck and he was busy commanding the others to keep a 500-meter radius away from the pillar. He wanted to know first what Yul's real intention was in taking on the Guardian. He wondered if that guy has finally found a way to give back their points or if he has decided to keep them all to himself. This guy recalled the facial expression that Yul showed when they were in panic. And he thought that RMC didn't look like a bad guy. He also considered the fact that Yul was incredibly intelligent. And someone having the same power could even dominate the entire city if he wanted to. But right now, this one was busy defeating another Guardian. This was the same for Haiju, who had been really uncontrollable as well. Ying then wondered if they could really clear this mission again. And while their truck was heading in a certain direction, the fight between Yul and the angel went on. The driver of the truck saw something and he immediately turned the vehicle. A bright red light has hit the ground and it nearly got the truck. The force that this one created was more than enough to make the army truck fly into the opposite direction. Ying and the other soldiers seemed to be fine even after the incident. But they wondered what happened. This soldier checked the place where the beam landed and then he saw a silhouette of a man holding the same wings and halo that the Guardian had. This person was none other than our MC, Choi Yul. He was now standing on top of the Guardian and it seemed like he had defeated it. The sword that Yul used was called the Divine Divide. It's a legendary class sword. This one was said to have divided the heavens and earth, though it has lost most of its power. Yul then proceeded to open the system window and turn the monster parts that he got into items. Ying then approached our MC. He told him that he was surprised because he single-handedly defeated a Guardian. But this guy didn't reply to what the soldier had said. All he did was to smile at him. After a few seconds, our MC went on his way and vanished again. Ying thought that the reason why Yul didn't talk was that he was preventing him from becoming a sacrifice of sovereignty again. And that gesture made him sure that Yul was really not a bad guy. And while he was busy with his thoughts, the other soldier started to tremble and pointed out the Guardian. Ying was not aware of what's happening, so he just told him to report to the HQ that it has been defeated. But that was clearly not the case. Turns out, this one right here was still alive. It started to move and approach the soldiers. The system then notified them that a certain requirement had been fulfilled, all because its wings in hell were removed. A special trait has been unlocked and it was called corruption. This then made the Fateless Angel transform into another being. The Pillar Guardian looked like a new monster. This was now called the Corruption Beast. Its difficulty was also increased to level 2. Ying was still standing in front of this boss monster. He thought to himself that military life was really shitty. The growl of the monster has enough power to send some debris flying. But as soldiers, they cannot really back down. The squad that Ying leads bravely walked towards the beast. He thought that since there's only 3 monsters in this mission, these 3 should be as difficult as an entire raid. Nevertheless, this individual raised his weapon and began firing. He then wondered what was Yul's reason for leaving something like this in their care. Ying also commanded his men to call for some backups while they held this beast in place. In a split second, the monster leapt from the building with its incredible speed. This beast tried to land an attack towards the soldiers. Fortunately, they were able to dodge it. The whole troop then started running away. A status of normality called fear has affected their brains and lost their will to fight. The only one who was sane was Ying, all thanks to the effect of his helmet. But as he witnessed what was happening, all he could do was to grit his teeth. He began diverting the corruption beast's attention, his strategy for safeguarding the other soldiers who were unable to think clearly. In his mind, he just needed to buy more time until the backups came in. But this seemed to be a really wishful thinking, as the corruption beast had already jumped and was about to pounce on him. He turned his head around and thought that he could just hold on until then. After a second, the claw of the beast landed on the ground. Blood was splattered all over the place. The eyeglasses that Ying wore were also sent flying. The corruption beast continued putting its weight onto its palm. And all the while this was happening, our MC was just there holding his book. He closed his fist and the book did the same in unison. He exclaimed that this just took care of one. Going back to the beast, something emanates a bright light under its palm. After a few more moments, the power that oozed from this place made the hand of this guardian be repelled. A system notification appeared and it revealed that the Helden's helmet that Ying had has activated a hidden skill. A hand holding a flag was then shown on the scene. And this was from Ying, who managed to survive that deadly attack. As for the requirement of the hidden skill, the wearer should be on the brink of death from an attack of a dark or corruption type, and he should be a leader of a party of more than 5 people. This skill right here was called Helden's Ghost. The user of the helmet will be possessed by the ghost of Helden and it will boost all of his stats for 10 minutes. His defense against dark or corruption attacks would also be increased. Ying kept on uttering phrases that were about the Iron Club goddess and it made the corruption beast confused. A fanatic skill was also activated, causing his whole party to be possessed as well. After a few more seconds, the soldiers who had initially been fleeing from the Guardian of the Pillar suddenly changed course and rushed toward the enemy, driven by a resolute determination to eliminate the threat. Meanwhile, Yul was still standing at the top of the building and was trembling. He thought that this hidden skill was scarier than what he had expected, and before their battle could start, Ying had remembered something. This was the time when his battalion commander was talking to him and offered him a car. Ying then told his superior that this looked like it was too great for a mere sergeant. The battalion commander, who was named Kim Song, then smiled. He praised the guts that this soldier had because he was quite frank in front of him. But this small talk just made things more awkward. Ying didn't respond. Commander Song then continued discussing their situation. He revealed that they still have almost no intel about the current status of things, and at times like this, their force would need to act as a calm observer. This role was a perfect fit with Ying. Aside from the effect of the Helden's helmet that makes him composed in all situations, this guy also has the guts to protect the people. Back to the current battle, Jin's squad has bombarded the beast with their bullets. They were not holding anything down. This soldier was still thinking of the things that he had talked about with the commander. That was until he ran out of bullets. But since they were in fanatic mode, Ying commanded everyone to charge towards the Pillar Guardian. The weapons that these soldiers received from the dice were then also blessed with the buff of the Iron Club goddess. This one had his divinity gunstock ready to be swung. As for the others, they received some kind of skill like this divinity bayonet skill. They even had this divinity flag that was used to pin down the corruption beast. And after a few more moments, these 5 soldiers have succeeded in subjugating their opponent. Each one of them roared and dedicated this feat towards the Iron Club goddess. An announcement was then shown to all the people in the city, including Commander Song. He found out that the leader of the party that defeated the corruption beast was Quan Yang. He then thought to himself that he really had a great eye on finding potential towards people. As for our overpowered NC, he had this huge smile as he thought that he was really right. All he needed to do was to drain most of the Guardian's stamina and then make Ying's squad finish the rest. This guy also noted that even if the Guardians were to transform into a new form, their stamina would stay the same. He also figured that when monsters transform, the contribution of the previous damage dealer would also be reset, just like what he did when he fought this Guardian when it was still in its fateless angel form. This information proved to be useful because this made Ying's squad as the biggest contributor for the defeat of the beast. They would also get more rewards now. Our NC then turned his attention and asked someone what he thought about this plan that he just conducted. The one that he was talking to was Jack, the goblin swordmaster. This one had this confused look because this was the first time a human was really having a conversation with him. Yell then told Jack that it makes him a little frustrated to find out that this guardian was not able to communicate, but he was still glad that someone could listen to his stories. Our NC continued talking to Jack until they came to the point where he asked the goblin if it wanted to make a bet. Choi Yul just made a bold statement that if he wins against all the guardians, he would even break the Demon King's seal. This statement bore an intense pressure. Someone couldn't just claim something he couldn't do. But for this goblin, he felt like this was possible. Meanwhile, a flaming spear was busy being swung in another place on the map. The slashes it executed landed perfectly on the anti-human machine with a level 1 difficulty, causing significant damage. This flame dragon goddess just went through a bunch of these machines and defeated them in an instant. Haiju went there after she received a rescue call, but her stamina was already running out. She also wondered if there's really no end to this battle. More and more machines kept on appearing. On top of that, these ones kept on receiving some kind of upgrades as time passed by. Haiju was already thinking of ending this fight before things got more dangerous, but the problem was the speed of production of this guardian pillar. She then commanded everyone that was near her to retreat for now. But these beaches were not listening. They thought that she just wanted to keep all the rewards to herself. People continued to rush towards the machines. Most of them were already desperate because they needed some points to buy potions to heal their loved ones. Among these said people were these two who were hiding behind the tower. They both positioned themselves in a perfect spot and readied their crossbows. These ones have a set effect that increases their damage according to the people who were wielding the same gear. But before they could release their attacks, the head of the Mad Brain Guardian turned around towards their direction. This caught them off guard and froze on their position. A powerful ray of beam was then shot towards these ones. Luckily, Haiju came at the right time and was able to deflect the attack using her legendary spear. But since the power of the beam was just too much, it was evident that Haiju was already struggling. A huge explosion was then seen along the area after a few seconds. Haiju was also revealed to be badly injured. The clothes this one was wearing were even burned from the attack. She then maintained her composure and was about to tell these ones to start running. But as she turned her head, she found out that they were already on their way. They were even crying for help. This lightened up the situation and it made Haiju laugh for a bit. And while this was all happening, Mad Brains has already fixed its gaze on Haiju. This Pillar Guardian had already started analyzing Haiju. This includes her status, user level, attack patterns, and other analysis. As soon as it was done, Mad Brains moved once again. And this time, a new machine was being created. This right here is intended to counter her. Haiju noticed this and thought that she needed to stop the machine at all costs. But Mad Brains knew what she was about to do, so it alerted all the other machines that had been deployed. And after a few seconds, they all rushed towards Haiju's direction. This tactic then made this lady occupied by deflecting all the attacks that were being thrown at her. But this didn't make her panic. She even thought that this was a perfect opportunity. She then released more of her power again and made her eyes and hair turn red. That short interaction was utilized by Haiju as all the machines had gathered near her. A powerful flame attack was casted once again. Haiju managed to defeat every single one of the machines in one go. And while she was at it, she asked everyone who were still near the place to start evacuating as soon as possible. After that, she threw her spear towards the skies. All the people near her knew that a powerful attack was about to happen as her spear was now heading towards the monsters, so they ran for their lives. The flames from the spear grew more powerful for each second it was traveling. It was sent to land on Mad Brains. And in a blink of an eye, a blinding explosion was seen along the area. This was just too powerful. The crowd that was running away from the tower were even sent flying from the shockwave it created. As for Haiju, she saw something interesting that made her let out an ironic laugh. In front of her was a powerful shield that has deflected her all-out attack. The tower and the Pillar Guardian didn't even have a scratch on them. A machine that was also flying inside the shield could also be seen. This new and upgraded type of machine was called AGM. It stands for Antigo Haiju Machine. AGM was resistant to fire and it was equipped with Dragon Slayer weapons. It will also be focused on detecting and chasing Haiju. This lady's eyes widened as she realized something. The machine that she just saw inside the shield has already made its way beside her. Instinctively, Haiju raised her spear to block any attack that this new opponent would do. And that was just spot on. AGM landed a strike and the power behind this one was enough to send a guard at Haiju. This lady was already losing consciousness from the damage she received and from the exhaustion of fending off the monsters. But before she passed out, this was the scene that she saw. A familiar figure just emerged and it was already on top of the Pillar Guardian. A red streak of slash was performed. And it was almost lethally accurate. Haiju then realized that this man right here was Choi Yul. And right now, our MC was already holding the head of Mad Brains. She was wondering what just happened but her line of sight was getting more blurry. After a few seconds, a powerful beam was sent to Haiju's position. This attack came from AGM because after all, this machine's role was to defeat Haiju. But as it approached the place where this lady fell, all that it saw was a patch of blood. Its system then alerted AGM that its target was missing. And it immediately activated its tracing senses. Meanwhile, this Pillar Guardian has already lost its head. The wires on its body were already malfunctioning. But then, something happened. The system revealed that an unlocking trait has been unlocked. And this trait was called the Mad Order. It will now repeatedly craft the last machine it has created and the manufacturing speed and amount produced will be doubled. And in a few moments, the whole area was already flooding with these machines. The production would never stop unless the main unit was destroyed. Meanwhile, our MC was just chilling while looking at the seal of the Demon King. This guy was lost in his thoughts. He was now thinking that the tower took longer to take down than he had expected. And it resulted in more people hiding in fear. As for the first tower, the crowd were still trying their best to destroy it. Even though they were already pouring a lot of their powers on hitting this thing, it was just too sturdy. In the second one, more chaos has started. Since there were now more unstoppable machines flooding the area, the crowd struggled even more. These guys were just trying to buy more time now. Fortunately, the backups have arrived. 3 army trucks appeared behind them. Yul was still observing everything. He thought that he could just end and defeat all of the towers easily, but it would be meaningless. Our MC knew that if he really wanted for this city to survive, something different should be done. In his mind, the whole city needs to become stronger. And his plan had already started with Yeom. This guy right here will be the one who would eventually become the capable commander that Yul was waiting for. And as for this lady right here, she will be the unit that would lead everyone to victory. After a few moments, Haiju woke up. She wondered if she was still alive. She then started to get back up while asking the one near her if this one saved her. But this lady was not able to finish what she was saying as the individual near her revealed to be Jack, the goblin swordmaster. Haiju took a few steps back, clearly caught off guard by the scene. Jack, on the other hand, let out a sigh and told the individual in question to be quiet. After realizing that she was indeed safe, Haiju apologized. But she freaked out again as soon as she realized that the goblin just talked. Jack then informed her that he was the one who treated her wounds, and that they should start right away as they didn't have much time. Haiju wondered what he was talking about. This swordmaster then pointed his sword towards Haiju. He revealed that Choi Yul asked him to train this lady with his swordsmanship. Although this might be too cliché, this will be Haiju's short training arc. This revelation then made this speech dumbfounded. Meanwhile, somewhere along the city, AGM was still looking for Haiju, and its system just detected a reaction from her, so it was now heading towards her position. This one was still 325 meters away. In its perspective, the system has already scanned the area and it just confirmed that Haiju was really there. After confirming this information, AGM flew faster and used its booster to get there quickly. But as this machine arrived at its target, it stopped as RMC appeared in front of it. Yul was now holding the fist of AGM while laughing. He revealed that he just fooled this one again. RMC was now holding the item Mad Linked Brain on his left hand. This item has the ability to confuse machines and it could disarm traps and devices 5 times per mission. This was also the reason why AGM missed the relocation of Haiju. It had been making its system think that the target was in another place. Yul continued to travel in different locations to lure the machine. AGM had enough of this, so it decided to just launch a powerful beam. And it landed on the building. The attack even managed to pierce through the other side. While the fight between Yul and AGM was happening, the crowd that was assigned to destroy the first tower were also busy. All of a sudden, the beam that AGM released just went through the same location of the first tower. And just being grazed from that beam, the tower had already been crumbling down. Turns out, Yul had planned this all along. He directed the attack of AGM towards that direction. He then turned his attention back to this machine and thanked it for solving another problem for him. This easy-go-lucky expression annoyed AGM even more. And all the while, the sound of weapons clashing could be heard in this area. This sound was coming from Haiju and Jack. Their training session has already started. While Haiju was deflecting the attacks, Jack was instructing her ways on how she could use her power properly. This lady has really paid attention and followed each command that Jack would tell her to do. Right now, the innate power of the flame dragon has been used. Haiju rushed towards Jack once again and attempted to land a strike. But this goblin swordmaster then reminded her something. He told Haiju that the power she had been using was not hers. And overdoing it could hurt her. So, rather than borrowing too much power blindly, she should just use the amount of power she could handle. Jack revealed that the power must not wield her. She should be the one wielding it. Haiju listened to all of these teachings and took notes from them. And from this day onward, this lady would become a more powerful warder. After some time, Haiju's pants could be heard along the third tower. This lady was still catching her breath from the training she just went through. She also found out about the bet that Yo and Jack had of her being able to defeat the robot. Haiju's expression became more serious as she asked her master if this was really possible. But Jack did not give her any reply. This lady then thought that Jack being silent at this point was not helping her being encouraged at all. Jack then spoke and he asked her the reason why she had let him teach her. He wanted to know if it was because she trusts Choi Yul or just because she wanted to become stronger. Haiju got up and then answered that she didn't know either. All she knew was that this game that they were in now has a lot of upcoming missions and full of stuff that she doesn't know. She was also not smart enough to find answers on her own. So the best thing she could do now was to train her body and see what lies in the future. With this captivating expression, Haiju revealed that that's how she had always lived her life. This simple yet bold statement then made Jack smile. He thought that Haiju was being used by Yo, but that was not the case. This lady right here was actually a true martial artist walking her own path. Haiju bowed and thanked Jack for teaching her. The idea of finding this genuine student made Jack smile once more. He then asked Haiju if they should now start getting serious with their training. 3 days later, inside this train station, lots of people had sought shelter in this place. Most of them were wounded from the ongoing fight above. These guys were even panicking and were torn between helping those who were still fighting or if they should just hide inside this place. Most of their concerns were about the contribution points they were about to receive if they managed to clear the stage. But their conversations were cut off as the ceiling above them trembled. Something has destroyed it and landed through the station. This one even had this blinding light. It was none other than the robot that had been looking for Haiju. AGM finally discovered the hideout of humans. This one then started scanning all of the people in front of it. And when it sensed even just a little bit of something that could be related to Haiju, it immediately released a powerful beam. AGM detected that his target was moving, so it had released lots of attacks to follow it up. The only problem was that this place was filled with injured people. Some of them might get hurt and accidentally be hit by these beams. A few moments later, its system concluded that it had already hit the target, so it stopped attacking. But as it scanned the surroundings further, all it saw was the head of Mad Brains lying on the ground. This alerted AGM once again. And before it could start with its desperate search, someone also came in from the hole that it created. The system also confirmed that it detected Haiju's signal. The crowd then wondered who this individual might be. AGM has turned its attention towards the one that just arrived. And there she is. Haiju has finally shown herself. But something was noticeably different. She had this new outfit now and the aura she was emitting was definitely more powerful. Some of the crowd even thought that she was an angel. Before coming to this place, the system has confirmed that Haiju has unlocked a special vent. She officially became Jack's disciple and it made her inherit his martial arts. As a reward, an equipment that was ranked heroic class or higher would be given to her. She also earned a new skill called Swordmaster Student. This right here was the improved version of our waifu. The item that she got was called Illusion Ember. This one has a heroic class and it was the armor of the best swordsman named Larny. The user would also receive a significant increase in defense power. And while Haiju made this amazing entrance, Yul and Jack were just on top of the place watching. These two were now talking about the odds of Haiju winning against a robot that was built to counter her whole existence. Jack revealed that this would be a 50-50 fight. This goblin claimed that the one in front of Haiju was her natural enemy. In their previous fight, she had no chance of winning. But things are different now because this lady has already learned martial arts. Each attack that Haiju was releasing was able to overpower a GM. But this robot wouldn't just give up because its only mission was to defeat and kill Haiju. Jack then thought that if the teachings that he had implanted into this one's brain would bloom, she would surely win this one. AGM wouldn't also appear as her enemy because she could just compare it to a piece of metal. Haiju was finally serious and she used her passive skill. A little recap of what had been happening all over the map. After 3 days and 15 hours since the mission, the first pillar has been destroyed. As for the second pillar Guardian, this took a little longer than expected even though the army had already provided some backups. It took them 3 days and 17 hours before they could destroy it. A few hours after this event, Haiju and AGM's fight was ongoing. But this didn't take much longer as our waifu had already dealt the finishing blow towards the robot. The system also confirmed that this special monster had been defeated. Seeing this, the crowd got more wary about their situation. On the 4th day, Ying noticed someone that was coming near him. This individual had this silhouette that seemed to be holding a spear weapon. Behind this one, there's also a lot of people standing. The individual was Haiju, and she smiled after seeing Ying being safe as well. This was also the time when most of the citizens returned to the game. 3 hours after their short reunion, something monumental happened. With the help of Ying and Haiju, humanity has finally destroyed the second pillar. These guys started to celebrate as they thought that they could definitely do this. They could fight and survive. The crowd also assumed that they just got some wins even without the help of Shuyu. But all they knew was information on a surface level. They didn't realize that this was all planned by RMC. This guy was still with Jack and the Sword Master claimed that his student won the bet so he would now keep his promise. The seal of the Demon King that was hovering above the city then started emitting this blue lightning. Something was happening. Meanwhile, the army has proceeded on assisting the people. They were now giving some food and additional equipment. Ying was now talking with Commander Song. His superior can't believe that his subordinate was now being held as a general of the army for leading them to victory. But this didn't really bother Commander Song because they still have a lot of things to do. He then told Ying to do what he needed to do as he would take responsibility for these things. Before ending the call, Commander Song even teased Ying of being promoted after this task. This soldier had no other choice but to follow these orders. All he could do now was to sigh. Haiju then came in and greeted him. This lady informed Ying that they should now get going. Ying asked her if she was really sure about this move. Haiju assured him that this was his promise to his master. Ying then imagined the scene where Jack told Haiju that the next time they would be meeting, they will be enemies. And since the most powerful Pillar Guardian was the last one they should defeat, Ying wondered if they could win against it. This soldier knew that with difficulty level 3, this boss strength couldn't be compared to those they had already defeated. He also wondered what Yul had been thinking. But before they could leave the place and go to the third pillar, the whole area was enveloped with an intense aura. These two then saw that something just struck the seal of the Demon King with a powerful force. And as they focused their gazes, they figured that this individual was Choi Yul. Our MC just landed an intense kick towards the Demon King's seal and it created huge cracks all over it. No one would have dared to destroy the seal with just a simple physical attack. After that, the seal broke and the debris started falling from the sky. The system then confirmed that it was really Choi Yul who destroyed the seal of the Demon King. This made Haiju and Ying dumbfounded. Doing this brave move also forced the system to change the whole goal of their mission. Red ominous energy then started leaking from the destroyed seal of the Demon King. This was like a crack in space and time. As for the new mission, their primary goal now was to kill the Demon King. Different creatures that looked like angels and demons then started pouring out from the crack. The system also emphasized that the game would be over in case they failed to do the mission. And because of this unexpected move from our MC, the crowd has become enraged once again. They claimed that Yul was really not thinking straight. This was the same for these two as they wondered what Yul was really planning to do. As for the last pillar guardian, this one commented that he didn't expect Yul to actually do it. He got this smile as he thought that there's still a few interesting humans this time around. Jack then prepared himself for the battle that he was about to face. This guardian then jumped and headed towards the Demon King's seal. Jack unsheathed his sword and started releasing his own aura. And with an incredible speed, this one had managed to defeat a whole bunch of monsters that were coming from the cracked space. These ones had no chance of even reacting to Jack's swordsmanship. Haiju and Jean witnessed this scene and they immediately felt the gap between their power. This was a monster that they were planning to take on before this chaos broke out. Jack noticed the presence of his student and then dedicated this move to her. He claimed that this will be the homework that he would be leaving to her. He would like Haiju to devote herself to learning martial arts until fate allows their calling to intertwine. Meanwhile, our NC just entered this unknown realm that was inside the Demon King's seal. He now had this fallen angel's halo, which was a legendary class accessory. This was the thing that protected him inside this demon realm and hell. As he wandered inside this place, Yul found this creature that was standing in front of him. He claimed that this just made things even simpler than what he had expected. Yul then started shouting towards this creature to catch its attention. Turns out, this one was the Demon King. Our NC used this opportunity to ask if this one knew another Demon King named Krasina. This creepy Demon King then turned around and revealed its massive build. He also answered Yul's question and told him that he had never heard that name before. This one also wondered how a human managed to come to this place. The name of this one was Kadamb Baba and he's the Demon King of Authority. This boss monster has a difficulty of level 6. Yul had this disappointed expression as he concluded that Demon Kings were not fond of interacting with each other. And since his question was already answered, our NC turned around and commented that things would really take some time before he could get more clues about this book. But before leaving the place, he turned his head around and apologized to Kadamb Baba for interrupting his meal. Yul also noted that the Demon King's real opponent would be arriving soon. Kadamb Baba then smiled and scratched his head as he thought that this situation was kinda embarrassing. But then, the atmosphere around the area changed as this one was already charging a strike onto our friendly and carefree NC. Yul's eyes widened as he was not expecting this cheap move from the Demon King. And while this was happening, Jack had finally reached the summit of the Demon King's seal. He landed on the ground and immediately heard loud noises. This one had this expression as he saw what was really happening in this place. Blood has already been scattered all over the place. The Demon King also had this angry expression on him. As for Yul, he was just there facing Kadamb Baba. The bigger picture was then shown as it revealed that the fists that this Demon King had been building all throughout his life were now gone. The blood that was scattered was from him. Our NC had his fist clenched as he commented that he moved based on his instincts. He thought that this was really against the rules. Kadamb Baba was clearly confused and lost as he wondered how a human had this amount of power at his disposal. Yul then apologized repeatedly as he claimed that this was all just a mistake. He wanted this Demon King to hear his explanation first and to calm down. But this method was clearly not working as Kadamb Baba was now enraged. He also started growing back the lost fists on his arms. Our NC then turned around and asked Jack if this goblin swordmaster would like to change places with him. Jack answered that he wanted to, but it seemed that the Demon King wouldn't allow it. Yul awkwardly smiled and agreed on what Jack had said. A powerful strike was also being charged at him by Kadamb Baba. This one was a little distracted as he thought that things got all twisted at the last minute. He then happily received the strike of the Demon King. While being sent flying, he recalled the scenario that he had prepared. Supposedly, Jack and Kadamb Baba would go into a one-on-one fight. There's a hidden event called Martial Artist's Fate that would be triggered. And this one would make the Goblin Swordmaster perform a technique that would have a mutual destruction with the Demon King. This event would also increase the rewards drastically. And all of these points would be given to the citizens. But right now, that plan was out of the picture. The Demon King continued attacking Yul while he was still absorbed in his thoughts. This guy was not even trying to block any of Kadamb Baba's strikes. The system then revealed that the armor that our MC was wearing has a legendary grade. This was called Ain Harriar Battle Jacket. This one is a gear for the chosen warriors for the War of the Gods. As he continued to allow the Demon King to land multiple attacks, Yul thought that there's nothing he could do about the lost special event. He then thought that he would just wait for the people to accumulate hunting points and end this fight before someone dies. Jack stood there watching how the Demon King looked like he was just massaging our MC. He had become speechless because something like this should be impossible to happen. Meanwhile, outside the demon realm, lots and lots of monsters were being defeated. The army had continued assisting the citizens on hunting these ones and evacuating them in a safer place. Ying was the one who led this squad. But right now, he was just too tired. He stared at the monsters they were about to face and thought that these ones were all easy to deal with. The only problem was their infinite number. He knew that if this fight was dragged a little longer, humanity would eventually fall. And this was all because Choi Yul destroyed the Demon King's seal. This also made our MC the official enemy of the city. But his trust on Yul was still there until someone dies from this. On the other part of the map, an individual just landed on a car. This one was Haiju, and she was leading some of the people on rescuing some of the citizens that got trapped. This lady also took care of the monsters that were looming near the area. With just one rounded slash, she managed to kill all of them. The monsters that wings were burnt and just fell on the ground. And after ensuring that all of the enemies were defeated, Haiju would escort the citizens towards the shelters near them. She also heard the comments of these people and they were about Choi Yul opening the Demon King's seal. These ones were not happy about it. Haiju sighed because she was really not a fan of hearing some bad comments about Yul. But one person then asked her if she would just let those slide. This lady right here who was eating some chips revealed that she had expected Haiju to explode after hearing those comments about her boyfriend. Also, the name of this lady was Kong Jiwoo. Haiju then blushed as she denied that Yul was not even her boyfriend. Jiwoo's eyes were then set on her as she repeated the words that Haiju had said. After that, Jiwoo gave this lady the chips that she was eating. This move confused Haiju. She then revealed that this was her way of thanking Haiju for saving her life. She also thanked her in advance for escorting them to the safety zone. But when Haiju was about to have some chips, she found out that there's only a half piece of it left inside. As for our MC, he was still inside the demon realm. Jack had enough seeing him just receive every strike that the Demon King gives, so he started wielding his sword. The goblin swordmaster went in front and told our MC that it was his time to step back. Yul was not expecting this. Jack then teased Yul and claimed that this human was growing fond of him. But that was not the case. Our MC was just worried about his conscience. The goblin even added that he thought that if they had met in another world, Yul might have invited him for a drink. And these statements dealt critical damage to this guy's conscience. After that, Jack had rushed towards the Demon King. Yul tried stopping him but it was no use. This guy then felt sorry for letting the goblin fight the Demon King even though he could just defeat it in one go. Our MC was now witnessing an intense fight between Jack and Kadamb Baba. Right now, it was already too late to activate the hidden special event. All he could do was to face bomb himself as he felt too much guilt seeing this situation. The book of Krasina then suddenly started shining. This one reacted because the system notified our MC that maximum friendliness level has been reached towards Jack. Krasina's hidden skill was activated. Yul then opened the book and checked the information about it. He had this wide smile as he figured something interesting. In the meantime, Jack had already taken a beating. This goblin concluded that Kadamb Baba was indeed deserving of the title of the Demon King. But even then, he still stood up with his face held up high in front of this overwhelming being. Jack gripped his sword even tightly as he knew that it was now the time to use his ultimate move. The only problem with this was that it would also put his life at stake. This goblin swordmaster then remembered the bond he shared with his disciple Haiju and friend Yul. And it gave him enough courage to face death. But before he could use his skill, the head of Kadamb Baba was already sent flying. And the culprit behind this sudden punch was none other than Choi Yul. Jack stared at his friend as this impossible feat unfolded in front of him. A new One-Punch Man has been born. Before fading away, Kadamb Baba was still confused on how a human managed to do this thing to him. After that, a huge explosion was felt all throughout the area. The system then notified everyone that Demon King Kadamb Baba had been taken down. And the top contributor for this victory was Choi Yul. An invisible force also landed on Jack. And he immediately felt it. Turns out, all the summoned monsters in this mission will be annihilated. This goblin was now slowly fading away. But then, Yul appeared in front of Jack wearing this huge smile on his face. The system then showed the hidden skill that the book had activated earlier. Our MC now has the ability to recruit 4 overlords and sign a familiar spirit contract with them. And as for the first one he wanted to sign a contract with was Jack. A confirmation window appeared once again before the ritual could begin. This goblin's Swordmaster couldn't believe that such a thing would be possible. A few seconds later, the demon realm has completely crumbled down. Yul was left there alone, free falling. He also commented that right now he had been hated by humans. He even allied with a monster. Inside the book of Krasina was Jack's image. This meant that our MC could summon him anytime he wanted. Yul smiled as he thought that as time passed by, he was drifting further and further away from being a human. After that, an announcement window appeared and it started showing and calculating all the points they earned. All of the citizens would be receiving at least 800 points now. As for the top scorers of this mission, Ying placed third and he will receive 3,245 points. Haiju got the second place and will receive 4,543. And as expected, Yul was the top scorer and would get around 220,000 points. Some of the people who saw this had this bitter expression on their faces. These ungrateful beaches were getting me annoyed every single time. Thankfully, we were blessed to see the flame dragon goddess Haiju. And among the ones who was notified about them winning this lady was now sitting at the edge of the building while staring at Yul. She wondered if this guy was really the golden child or if he was merely a catalyst for an impending explosion. Nonetheless, I feel like this lady right here would have a greater and more important role in the future. As for Ying, he was relieved to see that all things have worked out. He then thought that even though he didn't know much about games, he could tell that their situation right now looked like this. A large number of troops defending a single base. He then paused before continuing his chain of thoughts. He wondered that if this was really a game, would the existence of a supreme unit like Yul be allowed? This guy right here made himself max leveled at the very start of the game. He was also smart and capable enough to defeat a demon king this early on. Would the beings that were playing this game allow a phenomenon like this? After that unbalanced battle, the system had finally notified these beings that it had just detected an abnormal unit. Choi Yul's max stats were then shown in front of them. This guy's PFP even looked like he was just there chilling. The system then asked these ones to decide on the action they would like to enforce against this unit. There were 4 options: annihilate, reset, defer, or summon. The being was now thinking on what he or she should choose. Our MC's face was then shown once again, and after a few seconds the being had finally chosen. And it was to annihilate the said overpowered MC. Upon clicking the button, Choi Yul felt an intense pressure around him. His usual calm and carefree expression was gone. He prepared himself in case there would be an unexpected danger. But nothing happened. Yul landed on this building and was still thinking about that weird feeling. He thought that he was being watched. As for the player of their city pawn, the system has notified him that the command that this one wanted couldn't be carried out. This error definitely annoyed this powerful being, and because it can't accept what happened, this one tried to find more loopholes in the system. It then started a thorough inspection towards Yul. The system then showed a whole new information about our MC. This guy right here was now being considered to be a hidden unit. The player that was assigned in Yul's city hid him from the other players that were playing the game. After some configurations towards Choi Yul, the game resumed back to normal. And because they have just won another game, all of the people that contributed received their rewards. And unlike the first time, their points were not stolen. Some of them immediately bought healing items to replenish their stamina and be healthy again. An announcer also appeared, and this guy used a magical class tool called Messenger's Voice. This allowed his voice to reach faraway places for everyone to hear. The thing that he just announced was about the reward dice that the system was giving them. Turns out, dice came in 7 different classes. Each one corresponds to the possible item rarity that a unit could get. The first set were the 4, 6, and 8-faced dice. The next were 10, 12, and 20-faced dice. These were the ones that allowed units to get up to legendary class items. As for the last type of dice, it was the 100-faced. This was a dice that appeared at the very start of the game. The items, weapons, equipment, and tools are produced at random. Getting high rarity items would not also mean that they would really be useful. Just like what Ying got this time. This one was called the Destiny Spork, a heroic class tool. The only use of this item was that if the user misplaced it, it will always come back. This spork is always clean. The people around the area have rolled their dice to get another set of items. And since it was too random, other people have started trading to others. Ying also observed that even if they just cleared a mission, some people were already looking for party members. Some of them were even volunteering to defend the evacuation centers. This soldier then recalled something that happened a few minutes ago. He asked Hau and Jiu if she was really sure about her decision. Hau and Jiu confirmed this and told him that she was really not fit to be in the military. On top of that, she was thinking about those people who were still in another place and hiding in fear. She wanted to help those ones. Before leaving, Hau and Jiu assured Ying that she will always help them during missions so this soldier wouldn't need to worry that much. Ying thought that people were really slowly adapting to this unrealistic world they were in. As for our MC, he was quite glad that all things turned out to be fine. He commented that this beginning for the citizens was going well. The champion who will be the essence of the missions and the military commander that he needed have both taken their respective places. Yel then thought of what he should do next. This was the most important part of this scenario. He knew that if the setting that he'd planned for this city goes wrong, the citizens might end up destroying the whole place. This guy was now absorbed in his thought process and brainstorming. But someone poked him. Yel turned his head and he saw a young lady that was now standing beside him. This lady was none other than Kong Jiwoo, the same person who was saved by Hau and Jiu a while ago. She then greeted our MC with a friendly smile on her face. Yel then panicked and immediately checked the book of Krasina for some information about her. He was able to get some basic ones like her name and her level. But aside from that, the thing that made our MC confused was how this lady managed to come up. The Jiwoo answered that she just simply climbed up. After the introduction, Jiwoo leaned a little closer to our MC. And this made the atmosphere around them a little awkward. While staring at Yel, Jiwoo commented that she thought he would be here crying because he was being isolated from the rest. But that was not the case. She then concluded that this may have been the way this guy had lived his life for a long time and he was already used to being alone. Yel asked her what she meant by that statement, but Jiwoo didn't answer him. She then told him that she won't be revealing the reason why she came to see him today. And this just confused our MC even more. And since Jiwoo noticed that Yel really had no idea about what she was thinking and planning, she dared him to use the Book of the Demon Cane. But our MC revealed that the thought process of people was not considered to be part of the data, so it would be impossible. This lady was relieved to hear that. And since she was done checking Yel, she prepared herself to leave the place using this rope. She also told our MC that she just wanted to see his face. Jiwoo leapt and utilized the rope. However, before departing, she made a remark about the person who had foolishly opted for the difficult path despite possessing the power to control the place. Yel panicked as he saw the lady descending down the building. And after a few more moments, she was gone. Yel thought that this lady was really weird and scary. The day then passed by peacefully. This gave the people to rest and prepare themselves. A few hours later, notifications started appearing once again. This one announced that the city's experience points just increased and it increased its level to 1. This will also open a lot of perks for the citizens to enjoy. The first one was that the status window's size could be customized. The people were also able to use the friend edition and block feature now. Text messaging and call features were also unlocked. As for the city, all the destroyed parts of this place would be partially recovered. Meanwhile, Yel was still on the top of the building. He was reading the information about this city leveling and found out that the more points the citizens spend, the more experience points the city earns. Our MC then scratched his head and thought that maybe the ones he had used were not included on the system, though he had spent quite a lot. This thought process then made him silent for a moment. He wondered where the points that he spent went through. Yel figured that the points he just spent most likely went towards the Demon King Krishna. This mystery was enough to make our MC wonder if it was really okay to keep using this book. Meanwhile, someone just got promoted and got the second lieutenant badge. And this individual was Yom. Because of the bravery that he showed last mission, Commander Song got really fond of him. And while this promotion was happening, one lady was observing everything from the top of the building. It was Jiwoo. She thought that the ones that Yel had chosen to lead the citizens were not half bad either. She wondered where she could fit in to get comfortable in the current situation. It was then revealed that she just knocked some of the soldiers that were assigned to this post. This lady also had a box full of dice. She got these from the military storage. Back to our MC, Yel was still having his meditation at the top of the tower. A notification then popped out and it was an announcement that a new turn had begun. Yel opened his eyes and got this more serious expression on his face. The space that their pawn landed in was called the God of Gold's trap. The system informed everyone that the whole city has been trapped by the God of Gold. And if they would fail to satisfy this one, the game would be over. Right now, the God of Gold that was portrayed by this gold pig was currently at level 2. There will also be 4 maps for this mission and its duration would be 2 weeks. Ying started analyzing the situation. He didn't expect that missions could last longer than 7 days. More information was then shown on their status window. Units were tasked to find treasures in the summon map and bring it to the city. Each treasure's value would be directly related to the satisfaction of the God of Gold. The citizens then started thinking of some things they should do since there were no monsters that would summon inside the city. They all thought that they could just wait for the others to clear this one. This kind of thinking then annoyed the God of Gold. The system then informed everyone that there was no common reward for this mission. All of them should work and try to bring treasures towards the god. Haiju also saw this announcement. The people who were around her then panicked as they thought that they didn't have any combat gear to hunt monsters and look for treasures. Since the status window's size could be customized, Haiju made it like it was just a smartphone. She also thought that this mission has way too many descriptions. This annoyed her because she had to use her brain with this. So she decided to skip reading and just go and hunt some treasures. Haiju was also planning to see the whole new maps that were added towards their city. Meanwhile, Yul was still standing in this tower. He hadn't made any move at all. He smiled because he thought that their player really had some good luck on rolling their dice. RMC figured that if all things would go according to his plan, he could easily have the city upgraded once again. After that, he would be refraining from using the book to get some information. He thought of this because this book could have some consequences that could backfire to him. But before he could do any of that, a sword suddenly came out from the book. This one had pierced right through Yul. RMC was caught off guard and felt an enormous amount of ominous aura. But after a few seconds, the sword disappeared. And it seemed that nothing happened. A notification from the system then told him the number of sacrifices he got from the last mission. And it was 0. A painful shock was then felt on his heart. The system then revealed that this was his punishment from the Book of Krasina. RMC was now being scolded by the Demon King for being lazy. He would also continuously suffer from this pain until he could offer some sacrifices that could satisfy Krasina. Yul was also reminded that there would be severe consequences if there was no offering until his HP reaches 0. The Book of Krasina would then claim the life of the unit that was wielding it and it would just go and find a new owner. This right here was the drawback of having an overpowered item that came from a Demon King. Meanwhile, the new map that was added along the side of the city has already shown itself. A group of units have found a dungeon in sector of the jungle block. These guys were even happy because it looked like an unregistered one. The leader of the group smiled and claimed that this dungeon right here was for them to take. The mage then asked him if he should contact the army. But asking for their assistance might end up losing more points. This guy has already decided not to ask for help. He then wielded his weapon that was called the Black Flame Dragon. This one has a heroic class grade and allowed him to wield fire damage. The whole group agreed towards this decision and even made a pose. They claimed that this was the start of their epic journey. Also, the name of their group was Kangs and Roses. But before they could enter the dungeon, an intense pressure was felt throughout the area. A silhouette of a large figure had emerged. It also had this ominous aura. The leader of the group then thought that this one was a monster that was gatekeeping the dungeon. They were quite confident that they could study its attack patterns then defeat it. But as they were provoking the said monster, Yul emerged from the dungeon. It was him. This guy was having a hard time carrying a whole bunch of treasures he got inside. He was now like Santa Claus. The leader was about to exclaim the name of Yul, but this guy has already made his way beside him. Our MC has started telling him some information about the boss monster. The whole group then started panicking. They knew that if they heard any kind of information from Yul, they would become sacrifices. Our MC already had this crazy expression on his face as he was desperately leaking all the data he knew. After that encounter, the whole group was sent inside this facility. One person was still furious at what happened. They can't believe that they became Yul's sacrifices on the first day of their first mission. The leader then whined about this not being fair. He demanded the army to do something about it. The mage then butted in and told their leader that they can't do anything about it because Yul was wielding a mythical class item. They should just lay low for now and wait for the mission to be completed. The place they were in was called the Sacrifices of Sovereignty Isolation Camp. All of the people who were present here were all victims of that Yul had told them. These guys were also talking about the facial expression that our MC had when he was telling them that information. They claimed that this was the true nature of Choi Yul. Some of them wanted to get some treasures even if they were already influenced by our MC, but they thought that they didn't want this guy to benefit from their efforts, so they backed out. Most of the guys inside that facility agreed on this way of thinking, as they all did the same. Meanwhile, the guy that they were busy talking about was now sitting on this pile of treasures. Choi Yul's expression really did change. The system notified him that the number of sacrifices that he now got were around 2,452. This made Demon King Krasina somewhat satisfied. But the punishment was then lessened a bit. Yul felt some kind of relief because the pain was more bearable now. He then stared at the book of Krasina again. He thought that the punishment was not included in the description of this item at the start. And even though it has all the information about all the things in this game, it was not revealing those that were about itself. Our MC let out a loud sigh as he knew that there's nothing he could do about it. He was now trapped with this book. But this guy still smiled as he thought that at least things were still at the range of his expectations. In his mind, he knew that the Demon King was now thinking that Yul was already under his control. Little did he know, our MC had already planned something out. And this includes all the sacrifices that he got a while ago. The showdown between who was really controlling the situation was now about to commence. It was Yul versus the Demon King Krasina. Our MC was determined to win, so he thought that it was worth a shot. At Sector B in the canyon block, a nest that has 3 huge eggs in it could be seen. This right here was the Emperor Griffin's nest. The mighty and powerful creature that was inhabiting this place was called the Emperor Griffin. This one has a difficulty of level 3. It was said that this one has inherited the blood of a dragon. And right now, this boss monster was about to attack Yul, which turned out to be chilling inside its nest the whole time. At another place in the map, the spear that our powerful waifu was shown. Turns out, Haiju was also busy fighting this elite monster called the Rock Troll. Since her spear was not really damaging the monster, she recalled the teachings of her master. A power isn't meant to be controlled. Instead, one should let it flow and decide its own course. Remembering this part made it possible to sever the head of the troll. Haiju then thanked her master once again for this kind of knowledge. With a chat expression, she claimed that she had become stronger. Jack's effort from teaching her has finally paid off. A woman then appeared near the treasure chest that the troll had been guarding. And this one started searching through the contents of it. It was then revealed that this woman was Jiwoo. Haiju greeted her and called her Miss Jiwoo, but this lady told her to drop the honorifics. Haiju accepted her offer to address her casually, so she called her Beach. She also inquired why Jiwoo was following her around. Jiwoo shamelessly admitted that she was there to mooch off some of the treasures the other person had obtained. Enjoying the rewards without putting in any effort was the ultimate goal. Haiju was not able to react to that statement because Jiwoo proudly said that. These two were now heading towards their next target. Jiwoo also used her situation as a fragile citizen. She knew that Haiju would not let her go alone in this dangerous place. Our waifu had no other choice, so she decided to agree. But she asked Jiwoo to wait for a bit. Haiju then contacted one of her friends and sent them the location of the treasure she got. After that, these two beaches continued their treasure hunt. Haiju then noticed the bag that Jiwoo was carrying and claimed that the contents were not that much considering she was leeching on her all day. Jiwoo replied that her motto was quality over quantity. This confused Haiju because treasures couldn't be appraised until they were inside the city. Jiwoo then told her that she was just using her guts. She always gets the things that make her think this is it. Haiju asked her how she was doing it. And then, this lady right here told her that she was using her eyes. Haiju felt that Jiwoo was kinda strange but somewhat cool. She knew that there was really something going on with her eyes. And while they were walking, Jiwoo asked Haiju about her friends that came here with her. Haiju claimed that they should be safe because she was constantly defeating all the monsters in the area. But then, Jiwoo told her that she really didn't know anything. This one then revealed that monsters were really not the enemies for this mission. And this can't really be considered as a peaceful treasure hunt. This thought then made Haiju stop moving and started thinking. Jiwoo then continued telling her that this mission was like an all-out individual battle since there's no common reward. And the treasures they got were not claimed until after the appraisal. That simply meant that other players could steal the treasures that other people got as long as they were not appraised. And this was proven to be true as the friends of Haiju encountered a group of guys which were stealing the treasures. In this part of the mission, it was easier to fight other people than to fight monsters. This was the start of the impending chaos that was about to happen. Later that night, at this motel building, there had been a broken window. Police officers and investigators were already inside. One of them greeted this man who looked like a really huge guy. They addressed him as Detective Seo. Aside from the detective, there's also another guy who was named Kong Du-shik. That guy was already a level 6 citizen while Detective Seo was at level 14. These two were here because there had been another case of stolen treasure. The officer then reported that one man suddenly blacked out during the treasure appraisal, and when he woke up, all of his treasures were gone. The detective then thought that these guys should have handed the treasure straight to the god of gold. The only problem was that the treasure appraisal takes time. Du-shik then started to reveal that appraisal time takes randomly between 1 to 12 hours. It was as if the system was telling other people to go and steal the treasures. This kind of thinking then annoyed Detective Seo. He was not a fan of this mentality. These two who were always beside each other always have contradicting perspectives. The police officers who were on the scene then wondered who was this guy who was brave enough to go against Detective Seo. And while they were watching these two bicker at each other, one of them exclaimed the name of Choi Yul. That officer told everyone that the real Choi Yul really arrived in front of them. This guy was even riding the Emperor Griffin and waved his hand to say hello. Our MC was about to greet them, but a hand stopped him from talking. This one came from Detective Seo. All of this happened in a split second. The detective was also charging up his legendary class item called Fungbek's Glove. It was considered to be one of the divine relics of the old dynasty and contained the power of the Oin god. In its description, if the user managed to find all 3 divine relics, their grade would change to mythical grade. The attack that Detective Seo did to get our MC managed to destroy the road that was below them. Du-shik then commanded the officers to send out a Choi Yul alert and evacuate all the people near the area. This guy smiled as he thought that Detective Seo was just too aggressive. That one went straight to a fight against Yul, who had advantage between his gear and level. But something would make him happier. And that was if Detective Seo's bravery would come to bite him and end up being killed by Choi Yul. Right now, Detective Seo didn't utter a single word after pinning this one. He knew that Choi Yul had let him do this because this attack wouldn't even hurt him. Detective Seo then wondered what this carefree guy was scheming. After this, notification sounds could be heard all throughout the city. All of the people were now talking about Choi Yul being arrested. This event made some people think that he was really not a bad person because he voluntarily turned himself in. But for some people, they think that this was part of his plan. Choi Yul being arrested also meant one thing, and that was for people to be more proactive on getting treasures and defeating more dungeons. They knew that the threat of becoming a sacrifice was gone. These guys even celebrated, but this kind of attitude just made the god of gold more annoyed. Meanwhile, at the jungle block, a goblin village was discovered. These weak monsters were now being subjugated by the citizens who got used to fighting. The weapon that was just used right now by this soldier was called Owl Warrior's Tomahawk. It was a heroic class axe, and its effect was it comes back if the user throws it. The soldier who wielded this weapon was Wang Minwu. And this guy reported that they just cleared this area. But one of them disagreed as he saw some goblins trying to flee the area. This guy was Li Wujin. And this one wielded Pride, a heroic class bow that was made by the elves. This one then fired his arrows towards those monsters. 2 out of the 3 of them were hit. One goblin then teased the soldier for not hitting it. It was even laughing at them. But its smile disappeared as one bullet landed. The soldiers didn't bother to really chase that one because they knew that their sergeant had their backs. The one they were talking about was Park Seong-kyu. This one was a remarkable sniper, and the item he was using was this overcoat of wonder, which decreases the chance of him being noticed by monsters. After confirming the death of the last goblin, Seong-kyu then reported this news to their commander. The outer region was clear. The one he was talking to was Yom. This guy told everyone that they were about to clear this area as well. The only thing that hindered them was this goblin that was using some kind of magic. This tiny thing claimed that their gods would soon descend upon this place and no one could avoid the impending death. This goblin was still having its speech, but it stopped mid-sentence as one weapon was being charged towards its direction. This item was called the explosion ring. It's a magical class accessory that allows the user to use magic explosions every 30 minutes. The soldier who was wielding it raised his middle finger and the ring started to glow. This guy was Kwangsu, who was with Ying in the battle against the corruption beast. After a few seconds, there had been a purple explosion along the area. Ying didn't expect his subordinate to attack the monster while it was still summoning or transforming. But he still commended Kwangsu because they are soldiers, not anime characters. The attack left a huge crater in this part of the map. As for the other soldiers, they were still busy fending off some goblins. One of the soldiers then informed their platoon commander that they had now found their target. The ones they were talking about were the 18 citizens who went missing. These were mostly ladies. Most of them were heavily injured. Something happened here and I'll leave it for you to guess later that day. At the military commanding headquarters, Commander Seong was still leading the army inside. He was the one responsible for approving and providing some backups to those who needed it. Right now, he revealed that they have planned to make the Goblin village as their outpost. Commander Seong then quickly changed the topic as he talked to Ying about Choi Yul being arrested. Ying told him that he had no idea what he was planning. He then commented that the thing that was scary about Yul was not the book of Krasina but his brain that takes in all the data and knows exactly what to do with it. Choi Yul was like a grandmaster in this game of chess. Every move he makes was calculated and could end up in his favor. The only thing that Ying could assure Commander Seong was the fact that Yul was not their enemy. Back to our MC. The Emperor Griffin that he used to get in this place was becoming bored. It has been a long while since this beast went in front of the police building and was waiting for its master. Talking about its master, this guy was now busy eating cooked food inside the interrogation room. Dushik and Detective Seo were also inside. They found out that our MC just wanted to have a small talk with them. This guy then tried explaining the situation our MC was in. He told him that he was wanted for fraud, robbery, and even murder. Yul didn't care much about these things, so he quickly agreed to these crimes. He even acknowledged them. Detective Seo then smiled and told him that in his 20 years of service, he had already developed this gut feeling that lets him figure out a criminal just by looking at them. Dushik also knew about this ability. And right now, both of them knew that Yul was innocent. Detective Seo claimed that those things that happened to this guy were all accidents. Dushik then approached our MC and told him that this was really a good example of Good Samaritan law. This was a law that allows those who harm others for goodwill to avoid punishment. Detective Seo then proudly suggested that Yul should turn himself in. He would then make sure that he would clear all the misunderstanding that the people had about him. But their offers were quickly denied by Yul. He told them that he didn't come here to seek their help. This statement confused Detective Seo. And before he could ask our MC more about this situation, a police officer barged in and informed them about an urgent news. It was reported that there had been an assault case, but the perpetrator has a piece of heroic class equipment. Cases like these also started becoming more common in the last few hours. This then forced Detective Seo to leave the room and attend to those matters. After a few moments, a police bus could now be seen heading in a certain place at an incredible speed. Dushik was inside this bus. He thought that the fact that there will be no common reward for everyone revealed that the citizens have no cooperation at all. This guy then commented that things should have been like this from the very start. Dushik agrees with the mentality that chaos was necessary for a new order. This way, the new world would be formed and it would aspire for new powers to emerge. He was then cut off by Detective Seo, who was also inside the bus. He claimed that Dushik should practice thinking like a normal person now. In this detective's perspective, he doesn't get all this otherworld stuff that happened. But all he knew was that they were still humans. And people would end up doing the things that normal humans would do, even if it was with the influence of greed. This right here was a perfect example of how humanity does these when they were backed in a corner. Luckily, people like Detective Seo still exist. This guy right here promised that arresting people who don't want to act like good people was his sole mission. Detective Seo has now successfully apprehended the suspect and he arrested him for robbery, assault, and attempted murder. He also had this proud smile on his face as he told the suspect that resisting arrest was really not an option. The culprit got intimidated and immediately surrendered himself. He knew that he would just get in trouble if he fought this guy. After that, this one was brought inside the bus. Dushik then told Detective Seo that the laws of the earth don't apply anymore. He even suggested that they should just live like this city's kings. But this idea was not given any attention by this guy. Detective Seo then revealed why he was keeping Dushik by his side all the time. He knew that Dushik was the most dangerous guy in the city. Dushik thought that he would have agreed with Seo on this idea had it been a while ago. But this changed when he met Choi Yul. Dushik claimed that he can't even read RMC's thoughts and his plan behind turning himself in front of the public. As he was thinking about it, an idea came to his mind. Dushik then smiled and told the detective that they will be really busy from now on. He started to explain that ever since Yul turned himself in, the people got this idea that this was their golden opportunity to accumulate treasures and points. And that made the whole city in a mess. Detective Seo defended Yul and told Dushik that this was not what RMC wanted. But the truth was, Choi Yul wanted the people to act. After that, the people would start hiding from Choi Yul again once the next mission starts. Meanwhile, RMC was still inside his cell. He was now currently reading some things inside his book. He smiled and commented that this turned out to be just a fight of patience. The system then showed Yul's current status. His stamina was still at 92 to 13% and the amount of sacrifices he got was 2,352. This made the Demon King not satisfied and demanded for more. Yul then brought out this piece of hair that was contained inside this little bottle. This one was the Monkey King's tail hair. And it has a heroic rank class. This item could be used to create the user's alter ego. The hair then turned into a clone that really looked like Choi Yul. RMC was amazed at how flawless this replica was. Even the scar on his head was a present. Yul then used an invisible cloak to hide himself. But before leaving the place, he reminded his clone to do his best by pretending to be his stand-in. He also added that this clone should last as long as it can without getting caught. The cloak that allowed RMC to pull this stunt was called the Phase Transition Cape. It was a legendary rank cape which allows the user to escape interference of the material world. And with that, this clone was left inside the cell alone. A police officer then barged in and told the clone of Yul to hurry and come out. The clone just stared at the police officer, which made him intimidated. This one then asked if Yul was planning on making him a sacrifice. This one then revealed that their squad was really assigned towards escorting him. So even if they become sacrifices, it wouldn't really matter. Choi Yul walked in the direction of the police officers and these ones immediately went on guard. To their surprise, Yul smiled at them and this one asked them that they should now head towards the special isolation ward that the military had prepared for him. This clone revealed that it just wanted to sleep. As for the Emperor Griffin that was waiting outside, it suddenly felt something. This beast then flapped its wings and started leaving the place. The officers who were assigned to guard this one wondered why it left all of a sudden. These guys even regretted not having some pictures of it. Turns out, the Emperor Griffin left because our MC was already on its back. Yul was now busy checking something on his status window. He claimed that the civilians have started to move, so the stage 1 of his plan was a success. The next thing he needed to ensure was to move on to the next stage, which would include the jungle sector. After that, 4 days have already passed. The civilians were now divided into 2 categories. The first one were the outers who go outside the city to find treasures, and the other one were the inners who were in charge of keeping the peace inside the city. All the people were free to choose which role they would like to fill in. The system window made this thing possible as anyone could post and communicate to each other. The ones who had no battle ability also found their own ways to survive. And so, this mission seemed as if it was going smoothly. Until it was not. This place right here was the jungle sector outpost, which was previously the goblin village. A silhouette of an individual emerged at this house. This one was Yom. He was now in deep thought as he recalled that they managed to build this area in just 2 days. He figured that the otherworld version of humanity was quite scary. These ones have really adapted using magic and powerful weapons. He thought that if those with this kind of power cooperate, they could easily complete this mission. But the problem was not everyone has what it takes to be a team player. Commander Seong revealed that inside the city, things were getting out of hand. More and more crimes involving the treasures were being reported, and this includes scamming, pickpocketing and robbery. Commander Seong added that the police were doing their best to lessen these incidents, but they don't have enough people or equipment to respond to every call. Yiding asked his commander if the army would make a move, but this was answered by a firm no. He was told that doing this would make things more dangerous. Commander Seong claimed that in the history of mankind, there's never been a good situation when the army tries to fulfill the role of the police. This man firmly believes that until the police officially ask for help, they will not meddle with their work. This was because the military cannot take the leadership of public order. Back to the current situation, Yiding was still thinking about this conversation. He then concluded that even if the whole world changes, humans don't. This idea right here was the bitter truth among humans. And amidst this quiet night, some things were happening in the dark. This person right here was now begging for someone to stop his skill. But the culprit who appeared to be wearing this dark purple mask was not listening. He was busy experimenting on the kind of poison that he could make. The mysterious man was wielding this orb that was placed on his right palm. This item has a mythical rank just like the item that our MC got. This one was called the Abandoned Magic Pearl. This item was said to be thrown away by the Mugi who had been working hard to become a dragon. This one was also a growth-based equipment, which means that if the user constantly uses it, it will become stronger. The orb can make a variety of poisons and manipulate them. This one who had been chosen to be the lab rat was already running out of breath. But this one told him that he was still not planning on killing him yet. The system tried identifying the name and other information of this individual, but they were all set to private. The mysterious guy then smiled and revealed that he still had lots of poison combinations left to try. Hearing this, his opponent told him that he would give him all of his treasures just for him to stop. But this one was not even listening. He claimed that everyone was saying that without knowing the real treasure, which was the experience. The purple poison mist was then casted to this guy. And there's nothing he could really do about it. The skill that was directed to him turned into a form that looked like a snake dragon. After that, the purple mist surrounded the whole area. A gauntlet then appeared and it started getting rid of the poison. This one came from Detective Seal. And right now, he is with Dushik. They came in here because of the report they got near this area. These two were immediately startled as they saw what lies in front of them. A person who lost consciousness was lying on the ground. What made this one interesting was that all of this guy's treasures were still with him. He was also not dead. Detective Seal then wondered what kind of group or individual was behind this attack. But all he could say was that something dangerous has emerged because of their search for power. A pile of bodies were revealed in which they also suffered the same fate as the first guy. Dushik smiled as he found this information interesting. He commented that after the great demon king Choi Yul disappeared, another dangerous one emerged within the darkness. Detective Seal then defended our MC once again and claimed that Yul was not a bad guy. Dushik couldn't just compare him to the person who did this. But in the end, he agreed with what Dushik had said. This thing started because of Choi Yul. This guy then thought that he really needed to have a deep conversation with our MC. Dushik teased him knowing that Yul wouldn't really answer any of his questions. Especially at times like this. With that, the detective planned to question the ones who were around him before this mess all started. And these people would be Yang and Haiju. And while he was riding the griffin, Yul suddenly sneezed. He then wondered if he just caught a cold even though he already maxed out all of his stats. Meanwhile, the system has shown the satisfaction level of the God of Gold. And it was at 674% only. Our MC thought that this was still not high enough even if he considered the treasures that were still being appraised. He then thought that there's really nothing he could do about it. This guy was now heading towards the desert sector while carrying a huge pile of treasures. A powerful whirlwind greeted him and the Emperor Griffin. This beast was already at its limit because this had been really a long ride. But it was still able to inform its master that they have now arrived. Yul was then dropped off and he said his goodbyes to Emperor Griffin. He told this beast to rest for now as he will be back soon after this important task. This guy then landed in this sea of treasures. The whole place was surrounded with gold and other valuable items. Yul thought that the treasures that the civilians have gathered wouldn't really matter right now. And this was because he had already got all the expensive ones. This right here was a perfect example of an MC that was really using his abilities to the fullest. A creature then emerged among the treasures that were inside this place. Yul greeted it and told this one to eat a lot and grow quickly. This right here was Yul's own God of Gold. And right now it is still in its baby stage. The system showed that this baby needs love and care. Talk about becoming a father of a god. Meanwhile, at the jungle sector, these soldiers were now in tears as they found out that their platoon commander would be leaving them here. These three were the ones under the supervision of Yom. He was now asked to return to the city as he needed to give a brief statement about Choi. He told his men to not be so dramatic. As their leader was heading out, these guys requested Ying to bring some ice cream on his way back together with a lot of snacks. The truck had already traveled considerable distance and these ones wondered if their leader was really gone. The mood of these 3 soldiers then changed. They even celebrated as this was their time to have a party. The sergeant who had been assigned to oversee the soldiers observed this and couldn't help but think that they truly appeared foolish. This person was Seonkyu. He then thought that maybe this kind of thing wouldn't really hurt them and it can even boost the morale of the soldiers. It was almost time for them to take on a large-scale dungeon, so they need to loosen up a bit. The 3 continued dancing around the sergeant and even claimed that they should do a K-pop female idol medley for 5 hours. And even if they were about to celebrate, this guy still can't let himself not worry about the safety of their platoon commander. Meanwhile, this goblin hand infused with magic was shown and it had landed several clean attacks towards Yul. It was then revealed that these were from Jack, the goblin swordmaster. Yul fell on the ground after that. This one raised his hand and commented that it was now all over. Turns out Jack just pricked Yul's pressure points. And this guy right here was back to his energetic self. He quickly thanked Jack for his help. The goblin swordmaster then added that this method could only decrease the pain and it still cannot stop it. But this was proven to be good enough for RMC. This powerful monster had already accepted his fate on becoming one of the heavenly kings that serves Choi Yul. RMC thought that there's still a lot of things he wanted to ask Jack, but he reminded himself that he should do this after the situation has been stabilized. Because right now, they were about to take care of a much-needed treasure hunt. Yul planned this one while Ying was not present in the jungle sector. And this was because he was about to raid the largest dungeon that was inside this area. RMC planned to monopolize everything again. Ying had already arrived inside the city. But then he felt something. The driver that was beside him noticed this and asked what's wrong. Ying then told the driver to turn their car around immediately. This soldier then revealed that there's an ambush that was directed to them. The magical elements that were casted all barely missed the car where Ying was riding. It was then shown that these attacks were also from the civilians, which had this purple mist around them. This individual couldn't help but wonder if these individuals had lost their minds, considering they had just launched an attack on the military. But even in this kind of situation, soldiers were not allowed to retaliate against the civilians because it might cause more chaos. Ying then ended up relying on the soldier that was driving the car. He asked this one if he could run from these attacks until the backup arrived. The driver confirmed this. Their car just turned into this intersection doing a sharp right turn. Ying then thought that the crime rate inside the city was worse than he had imagined. And that was because the stronger people were outside the city. And only the cops and the non-combat civilians were left behind this place. This soldier then concluded that this was really the best environment for criminals. And among these guys was this mysterious man who can control the mist of poison who appeared right above them. Ying was still thinking that if a strong villain would appear now, the whole city would turn into the most dangerous field of them all. And right now, a powerful skill was casted towards the army car. It was the same poison that looked like a snake dragon. The only difference was that this one has a more powerful aura around it. The driver of the vehicle then informed his platoon commander about this. And they noted that it was moving way too fast. On the other side of the map, a lizard man was fighting an individual. And this one was Choi Yul. The monster in front of him was called Abyss Lizard Man. It is an elite monster and has a difficulty of level 3. More and more monsters then appeared in front of our MC. These were the ones guarding the largest dungeon of the jungle sector. But this kind of battle was just a mere child's play for Yul. He wielded his sword once again and had this annoyed expression. Our MC made one slash and it was more than enough to annihilate all the monsters in front of him. This guy smiled and claimed that the pressure point trick was really great because his body feels so much lighter now. Jack then came in and reminded his master not to push himself too hard. He also informed Yul that this place has the same aura that was imprisoned inside the Demon King's realm. And with this aura, all the monsters inside were being made stronger. This place right here was called the Abyss Lizardman's underground city. Tackled him. Our MC's expression changed as he realized something. This place could also boost the power of demons. And since the Demon King Krasina was one of them, Yul figured that the punishment of this Demon King would be stronger. He then decided to clear this place and get the treasure as soon as possible so they could immediately leave this place. After a while, our MC had collected enough treasures. He also shared that the most important thing about this mission wasn't to satisfy the god of gold. That method was just the easiest. Doing this just to pass the mission would also end up receiving only the minimum rewards available. And our MC doesn't want that, so he proceeded to find more loopholes. Choi Yul was the perfect man for the Book of Greed. And that was because what he wanted was to get the most rewards possible. Our MC was willing to do everything for this goal. Even what was happening towards Haeju and Yi Ning right now was part of his plan. The snake dragon has finally reached the army car that Yi Ning was riding, and it devoured it completely. Meanwhile, this guy still had this calm expression. The helmet of Helden was doing its work. Yi Ning also brought out this round item. He then recalled the time when he was given some kind of promotion reward by Commander Song. This commander claimed that he got this item from doing a mission. But he thought that Yi Ning would use it more. He also added that he had given Yi Ning's subordinates some good items too. But this soldier just stood there awkwardly, and it made Commander Song wonder if he needed more. He then revealed that he was not just used to a military army that has enough funding. Back to the current situation. The item that he got was this one called Momentary Shelter. This item creates a safe area when used. It has a range of 3 meters and a duration of 3 minutes. This one had protected them and prevented the poison from coming in. Yi Ning commanded the soldier to stop driving as they could cause an accident if they act rashly now. Something then landed in front of them and it startled the driver. This one right here was a mysterious man that also got a mythical item. And he greeted Yi Ning. But this soldier didn't respond. He just stared at him. After a few seconds, Yi Ning spoke and told this one that he would like to talk to their leader. He had mistakenly thought that this one was just a simple minion. Hearing this statement then made this one laugh. He even claimed that he liked this kind of character that Yi Ning possessed. But by the look on this soldier's face, he was not joking. The man with this dark purple mask then revealed that he was really the leader that Yi Ning was looking for. And to answer his request, this one was really not looking on having a conversation with him. This one told them that they just needed to listen and do what he was about to say. Yi Ning and the other individual were given a stern ultimatum that they had to follow him or they would face their own demise. The mysterious man had now started enveloping the area with a much potent type of poison gas. The metal that was even near them started to corrode. Seeing this kind of scene made the other soldier hug Yi Ning. He also begged him to save him. And all the while, this one had been analyzing their situation. He knew that this attack had a wide range and at the same time deadly. His thoughts of encountering people that wield powerful items came true. And this resulted in much more chaos. And since they were also in trouble, he thought that he should just worry about their own survival first. But then, the item that was protecting them started to crack. The mysterious man asked them once again to surrender. He knew that this protective shield would not last a bit longer. Yi Yong then told him that he would just surrender against him in one condition. And that is if this person volunteers to become his subordinate. This guy said that in a straight face. He added that he could already tell that this one was not in the right state of mind and promised that he would do everything to make him more human. But instead of calming down and de-escalating the situation, that statement made this one more furious. He claimed that Yi Yong just crossed the line. The driver of the vehicle panicked and asked his leader why he kept on provoking their enemy. Before this one could attack the army car directly, he noticed something behind him. A powerful whirlwind then sent him flying. He didn't even have enough time to react. Yi Yong then revealed that he was purposely annoying their enemy because he was waiting for their backup. And that came in with Detective Seo's presence.